What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another takeaways and reactions video to the Steelers' win over the Tennesse Titans. First, before we kick into it, we just want to wish Treylon Burks all the best. I've literally just seen that happen, seen him carted off. They said he wiggled his toes. They don't know about, he had his eyes closed. Apparently, they've removed his face mask. So best wishes to Treylon Burks. We want him to be okay outside of playing the Steelers, obviously, and we want him to recover from whatever that injury is. But hey, the Steelers bring Matt Canada onto the field. They move him down from being up in the box, and the Steelers get a win. They looked better in a lot of times on offense. Tough game for the Steelers too. They had their injuries with Cole Holcomb out. So let's get into my takeaways and reactions. So number one is Kenny Pickett playing the full game. Now, Kenny Pickett had obviously didn't finish the game, last week. He's had about 28 to 35 complete attempts at passing over the last sort of 4 or 5 games. On average, 160 yards, 1 TD with less than 2 minutes to go. That probably isn't going to change. We know what the Steelers are like. It's going to be run the football, kneel it down, close it out, victory formation. So anything more that comes is what comes. But again, the efficiency, 1 TD, no interceptions. There were some missed passes from Kenny Pickett. And so at the same time, though, there were some drops. There were lots of penalties in this game. It's kind of a weird thing on Thursday Night Football, but he came back with broken ribs. So my bigger thing and takeaway is Kenny Pickett now 7-0 behind the spread in primetime football. I liked a bit more of what I saw. This could have easily been a 23-24 out of 30 at this point in the game with a couple minutes to go. So I'm really happy with that from Kenny Pickett. I think the fact he came back, played big, got them the win with the broken ribs, short turnaround. I kind of love that for a guy that's played just a little bit more games than a normal rookie anyway. So I like that from Kenny Pickett. So Kenny Pickett gets takeaway. He's tough, gritty, gets the Thursday Night Football win. That's takeaway number one. And actually, I can just see with Treylon Burks as well, they're ambulancing him straight out of the stadium. So again, best wishes to Treylon Burks. Now, the rushing game, huge from the Steelers. They simplified it. 3 guys. Again, who knows what's coming in the next minute and 56 seconds. However, 165 yards versus 70 yards last week. A 100-yard, easily won't be 100 yards. They're going to run for another 5 yards. 100-yard improvement on last week. Huge. Big game for Najee Harris. Big game for Warren. I've talked about this on our Touchdown Under shows in that this line is better suited to Warren than it is Najee Harris in just looking at the way it performs. They bring Broderick Jones in the lineup at right tackle. Look at the difference that it makes. It's kind of what I wanted to see. I'm kind of cranky to see that this week, particularly when I said that 2 weeks ago they should have traded Okorafor for David Andrews, the top center at the Patriots, who's a really good top-quality AFC center, one of the better centers in the league as well. Anyway, they didn't do that. It's good to have 3 tackles, to have a backup. But Broderick Jones comes in the lineup, and look at the difference on the rushing. So the takeaway is, well done, the Steelers offensive coaching staff, Mike Tomlin, and bringing Broderick Jones in. Hopefully he can just be a left tackle or right tackle now. I like the idea of Dan Moore as well being in there, which spot he takes. But hats off to Jaylen Warren. He just thrives with Steelers football, and that is fantastic to see. I freaking love it. Absolutely freaking love it. So then we'll move into the defense. Then we'll move into receiving. So Deontay Johnson had 88 receptions or 14 targets for 85 yards last week. This week he comes in with 7 receptions for 90 yards off 9 targets, so a better catch percentage. But he gets his first TD, and I think they said it was 113 receptions. So my second takeaway is Deontay Johnson. Look at the impact that he brings onto this Steelers offense. It meant that we saw a bit less from Pickens. We saw that almost touchdown. He couldn't quite drag the second foot in there. But that's okay. That's what's going to happen. And Pickens is drawing in defenders. And, again, I talked in the pregame show with Marky D on this channel that I wanted to see something from Allen Robinson. And, there was a point there where it was pretty close to the line a couple of times. There was a point where he was in the red zone. As well, where he had I think there was a foul on the play, but anyway, it would have been about 7 yards. He didn't get it, unfortunately. That would have gotten close to the line. That was in the first half. But good to see Allen Robinson somewhat worked in. Warren had 25 yards. So, again, Warren had a huge game today, plus 100 yards from the line of scrimmage. Absolutely fantastic for him. Almost 115 from the line of scrimmage. Huge from them. So yeah, again, takeaway is receiving game. Deontay here making a difference, freeing up the receivers, helping the offense get a win, clinical, and Warren continuing that all-purpose yardage. My next takeaway and reaction comes to the defense. So obviously Cole Holcomb went injured on that big play to DeAndre Hopkins to get Tennessee away from their own end zone. Atlanta Roberts stepped up. Last week, he had 5 total tackles, 4 solo. This week, he turns up and gets 9 total tackles, 4 solo. Again, top tackler at this point in time with 1:23 to go. Keanu Neal stepped up. I did say that was likely the case going to happen with Minka out. I said that in the pregame with Mark. Cam Hayward comes straight back in the lineup. 1 tackle for a loss, 4 solos, 6 total. Huge from an interior defensive lineman as well. Highsmith and TJ, 3 sacks between them. Marcus Golden, a 4th sack. Last week, the Steelers had 3 sacks and 5 tackles for a loss. This week, we've now already seen it. 6 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks. That's huge for this team. Well done to Golden on getting his. That was on a key defensive drive. But again, Highsmith and TJ. Highsmith's like, I think he's at 10 sacks, or over 10 sacks in the season right now. Highsmith's coming through as well. You don't want to play this team. And this is why the Steelers, the takeaway is the Steelers pass rush with the effectiveness that it has and the defensive quality the Steelers have means, and this is no surprise to anyone, but it means they can afford to play tight football where Kenny Pickett, it's about completions, 1 or 2 TDs. They're going to win games. We just got to get used to that, Steel fans. It's not that fun to watch, but we'd probably much rather see our team win than our team lose. So love that, from our defense because of what it means and takes the pressure off our young quarterback. All right. I also wanted to quickly have a look at, from a takeaway perspective, the actual team stats, because I think this tells you a lot about the Steelers. Last week, the Steelers, and right now, the Tennessee Titans have possession. Last week, the Steelers had 25 minutes possession. They chased the Jags most of the game, and they threw for a lot more yardage. Trubisky threw to try and get them back a win, particularly after he'd already thrown that interception on the key drive when they're only down by 7. This week, they don't have much more. They have another 3 minutes of possession. But the difference is this week in them not having to be as productive is not just the rushing game, but it's actually the fact that they converted on 3rd down, 6 from 12. Now, with a couple of plays to go, with a minute to go, I think Tennessee now have no timeouts left. They are 3 from 12, 25% efficiency versus 50% efficiency from the Steelers. The Steelers didn't have that against the Jags last week. I think the Steelers were something like 3 from 12. So the idea that you basically go in there and you double your efficiency on 3rd down makes a huge difference to the sustenance of drives and allows you to run the football better. And that was huge. So want to talk about time possession, 3rd down and 3rd down efficiency. They're correlated and they are the reason why the rushing game worked. The next take-home reaction is around penalties. There are a stack of penalties in the first half from this team. I think they had 5 in the first half. They're averaging 5 on the season. I think it was 5 in the first quarter, actually. And they were averaging 5.1 on the season in terms of total penalties. So absolutely huge in terms of the difference this made. And I honestly, yes, the Titans got a heap of penalties as well. They had 7 for 51 yards versus 9 for 75 yards on the Steelers, although one's just been called with, as I say, 49 seconds to go. But so it's on the Steelers, 10 for 80 yards. But I feel like the Steelers' penalties without this Tennessee Titans team would be at least 7 points behind or at least 3 points behind what they are on the scoreboard right now with 16-20 and probably where they're going to finish the game in 16-20 or even 2019. And so the Steelers would have had more possessions, may have scored more points, but the Steelers would have had a much more comfortable victory. So we talked about the penalties as a takeaway from the Rams game. Not great to see it this game. That has got to be fixed because when we play divisional matchups against Cincy and Baltimore, this is going to be a huge problem and it could well cost the Steelers the game. So penalties have to be fixed 100%. No excuses. And then the final thing I want to say is red zone offense. That still looks shaky. So my takeaway isn't negative or positive. It just looks shaky. And I kind of wanted to, that's where I personally really wanted to see some improvement this game. And so for next week, it's penalties and red zone efficiency and productivity. That's what I want to see out of the Steelers. But look, Steelers come away with the hard-fought victory. Just put my aligners back in. Hard-fought victory against an AFC opponent. They go 5-3 on the season. Now they put the pressure on Cleveland and Cincy for the rest of this week. And then, hey, let's see what happens. We've got another game against Baltimore. Divisional matchups will be important. The Steelers can call this back. You can't argue with a win. It's victory Friday, victory Saturday, victory Sunday, and victory Monday for the Steelers. So as always, Go Steelers.